gonna press. I started recording. Hello.
Woo! Hello.
Okay. Hi. Welcome to another episode. A very, I wouldn't say quick. We're gonna see how this goes because Kalani's back.
Yay!
Kalani is back
Over a Zoom call.
over a Zoom call now. We're gonna get into why that's the case. But if you've been on my channel for a little bit, of course, because of coronavirus. Corona and
Are we gonna get unmonetized if we say the
okay, you know what? I have not been monetized. So here's the thing, a little behind the scenes. I think I have to have about 1,000 subscribers and
we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll
40,000 hours of viewing time.
Okay.
So to even get the option of monetization or something like that. I need to look back.
Your time will come. Your time will come. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, I hope so. I just have to keep doing just be consistent on videos because it's like, you know, the thing about YouTube is like it's a old Hollywood saying of like you're only as good as your previous video. You know what I mean?
It's okay. Once it's pre-established, we're gonna go back into anime.
I know. So today is another episode. So this is a Bryan Kim podcast, and today's guest is Kalani, and we just kind of wanted to just sit down and just talk because I felt like we haven't talked in a while.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think it was just kind of this whole stress of coronavirus and all this stuff was going down, and we're getting new information almost like every day back in March. So I think what had happened is when right before the finale of My Hero Academia season 4.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, I think I sent a text saying, hey Kalani, I just got laid off for a second time in like 6 months.
Yeah.
And do you want to just do a podcast like tomorrow or something like that? So I got the notification I got laid off on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And then Saturday morning, we hear on the news that there's this stay-at-home order. You can't leave your home.
Yep, and we're stuck.
or it's like there was a danger to going out in public.
Right.
So you have family members that are pretty elderly, and I have family members that are of the risk range,
mm-hmm.
So because everything was coming out, new information, just like March 13, 14, we were just like, you know what, I think we're gonna have to put a pause on the podcast. I was and I was like really kind of bummed. I was just like, shit, like
it sucks, but I think like with the initial wave of everything, mm-hmm. like it kind of called for it. Like I remember a week before I lost my job, even though I still have it, but I was like temporarily laid off because we all had to stay home.
Right.
I remember being at work, and like no one was coming in, and it was a little odd. It was kind of strange. And at first, before it got as bad, I was one of the people that was like, I feel like at this point you can say that the flu was slightly worse. Yeah. And then as news started pouring in, and we started learning more about it, I very quickly shifted my perspective into being like, oh, this is a lot more serious than I initially thought, and I took it much more seriously.
Yeah, and I feel I'm guilty of that too, because at the very beginning of the year I was just like, oh, I'm worried about it, but at the same time I'm like, should I? Like we had Zika with I think 2 years into Trump, right? 2018. And then even before that with what was the one in Africa? Shoot. It wasn't SARS. Ebola. And then we had Ebola in like 2015, so it was like I'm mincing my words right now.
It's okay. I've had like long discussions about this, and it's weird to know that down the line, like years later, we're gonna look back on this as a time in history.
Yeah.
And like we're going to like hear about this in our history books and have discussions on it and how impactful it was, whether it was on the economy, on different nations, and responses and what.
And leadership, to be honest.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's definitely a new experience to go through something and not necessarily know what the correct form of action is to go forward, you know?
Right.
So it's a weird time, you know? Like I think a lot of people's opinions throughout this entire situation will be constantly changing, constantly shifting, and according to what's coming out on the news and whatnot.
Yeah. So you said you got laid off. When did you got laid off from your work, and like what was your feelings coming out of that?
I got laid off from work around, I want to say late March. I think my last week of work was like late March-ish.
And you do retail, right?
Right, I work retail.
Yeah, and so it was I think if the timeline is correct, that's when I think LA County was saying, okay, well, there's a inherent risk to opening retail,
right,
for in-person purchases. And so that around that time they were like, okay, well, unless you're an eatery, you're gonna have to close.
Right, and my work is considered non-essential, so
yeah.
Within the first week of closing, I remember because I obviously I manage like the social media accounts for my work and whatnot. So I helped to create like notifications and what for customers and so on. And I remember initially we were planning to have it so that it wasn't necessarily we were completely closed, but we would have it so the stores would be open. And then very quickly within 3 days, we got the order that, you know, all of LA County was going to be closed. So we immediately shut down everything. And then we basically got put at home. And then I would occasionally go in to help out because my boss is a small business.
Right.
So she doesn't have necessarily like a big platform in order to constantly be paying bills and whatnot. So I wanted to help her keep her social media presence alive while everyone was stuck at home. So I would go in by myself to like take pictures.
Oh, okay.
Just as a volunteer, just because I wanted to help out. But after like right now, currently, I'm actually back at work.
Okay. And so when did you get the notification that you're gonna go back to work? Because I initially for me, I think it was the last week of April. I got a call.
Hi,
Mom. I got a call saying that I was like, hey, listen, there's more work that's gonna come up.
Right.
So I like not many people know this, but I work like a nonprofit to help like high school students and high school programs. So initially I was brought on to do just like an online thing, just to have students just kind of interact with each other over Zoom and, you know, things like that. And that was going, and that was constant, right? It's almost every day, every day, like 2 hours, like from Monday to Friday, right? And then they added another layer to that. They were doing food distribution, so I think they got funding through the the school district for us to send food out to kids in need, because something that I guess most parents or like people that don't have kids don't realize is that a lot of families do rely on the school systems to feed kids.
Yeah, it wasn't until this entire situation that I realized that as well.
Yeah, and like high school kids, like they like now the parents have to be both providing food, also being teachers in some cases, and like and all those things. It's like it's not just the financial burden of not having a job anymore. It's also the figuring out how you're gonna feed yourself and your kids.
Right.
So
Funny enough, I have like a weird perspective on that too, because my aunt is actually a teacher at a school district. So I talk to her about school stuff like all the time recently.
What did she feel? If you don't want to talk about it, then
No, I can definitely talk about it. So just as like a brief like thing about her, she's a first grade teacher, and she also has a son who goes to the same school.
Okay.
Yeah. So as an educator, she like after everything hit and they switched to like online meetings and whatnot, she, I know, has been going out of her way in order to make sure that her students are doing work. And she isn't necessarily like 100% like the most tech savvy person out there, but she's adapting pretty well. I know her method of doing it was that she was recording videos, because she was telling me like, oh, I was wearing my robe when I was doing that video and you noticed the robe, and I don't know why I did that. So I cracked up when she told me about it.
Oh,
but
that's amazing.
It's like that one reporter that went on, you wear business on the top and pajamas on the bottom, like, that was my aunt. But yeah, no, she's had like little assignments where like she has her students be active and dancing and whatnot. And then at home, I think it's a little bit easier for her because she's an educator already. But she's been teaching her son at least like some of the things here and there, even though he's like in the 7th grade now.
Yeah.
But I know that she's mentioned like it must be somewhat difficult for a lot of the parents too. So a lot of the teachers that are in her district have been, from what I hear, like trying to provide parents with resources that they can use in order to keep them educated while they're at home.
Yeah, and I feel like because this is like a nationwide thing, like I think each state is dealing with it very differently, and I think even to the point that each school district is like doing something different,
Yeah.
And so like I have family out in Nevada, and they said they're still having in-person graduation. I'm just like, that's kind of not the thing to do.
Yeah.
But I don't. You see, the problem is, it's like it's Nevada, and it's much more wide open than LA. Like the spacing between houses are much more wider than it is here in LA. So I'm like, I guess maybe they could do it, but at the same time, the problem with me is like there's no consistency from each state to state on what to do, and it's just like it's just so frustrating. It's like, because I have family in different states, I'm like, what am I going to say? Because what works in California may not work elsewhere,
Yeah, no one situation is 100% the same, which is understandably
like
accurate about what our situation is right now.
Yeah. And that scares me, because I think in California there's a lot of support, like people say it's like, yeah, with the 5th largest economy if California was its own country, And so yeah, there is a lot of resources. I do obviously feel bad for like even our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the east, that like they may not have the same situations, like even like you think unemployment added another chunk of money. Like if you don't have a job, California is willing to pick up where the stimulus did not,
Right.
And when I applied for unemployment, I was just like, okay, well, it's $600 per month. And I was just like, okay, cool. And then I was realized, no, it's $600 per each week. Oh, no, not each week, bi-weekly.
Yeah.
So I was just like, God damn, that's a lot. Did you apply for that?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So so that should help,
I didn't get it.
You didn't get it?
No.
Oh no? So what happened?
I'm actually in the category of people that are struggling because they can't get in contact with anybody in EDD.
Oh, you didn't apply online though?
So to summarize it very, very quickly.
What's your situation? Because I just applied online and then I just got it. Yeah.
I applied online, but my application had a couple of mistakes that were pretty significant. So my my unemployment got held, and to
What?
this day, I haven't been able to get in contact with anybody to fix it.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. It's been a funny time because so I contacted EDD
Mm-hmm.
like maybe a week ago now, and um that entire experience in itself it's a wild time. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
There were like a couple of phone numbers you could try when you go onto EDD.
Right.
One number will tell you that they have new hours and redirect you to a different number. And then if you
Mm-hmm.
call that number, they'll say they have no representatives available and immediately hang up on you.
Oh my God. And you probably called like multiple times just to try to see if
Oh
you
yeah,
could get like
yeah, I've
a person.
tried. I need to wake up even earlier, but I I keep forgetting because I got obsessed with Animal Crossing. But I definitely need to call back.
We got 2 out of 3 guests that are playing Animal Crossing.
Okay, hold on. Let me say really fast.
All right.
The first week that I got Animal Crossing, Vincent like messaged me and was like, "You finally got it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Add me. I need to give you some things." So
You got a
he
starter pack.
yeah, no, I went to his island. It's so cute. It has like a Hogwarts theme going and like wizardy vibes. And,
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of things in his island that are very Vincent-esque.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool to see how so many islands are so different, even
Mm-hmm.
though they basically have the same layout.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of really good ones. I'm doing Nookazon, so
Nookazon. What Nookazon's the isn't that the
Nookazon.
stock market
No, that's Turnip Exchange.
Oh, that's Turnip Exchange. What's Nookazon?
Nookazon is like the Amazon, no, the Animal Crossing equivalent to Amazon. You'll like list your items for
Yeah.
sale. You can either give it for free, you can put like a small price on it, and you can just sell it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's a time.
Yeah,
Animal
that's
Crossing is crazy.
well. To be fair, Vincent told me that there are some people that's like, "Hey, I'll be willing to trade nudes for bells." I was
Oh
just
my
like,
god. Okay, hold on. Have you ever read anything about Raymond yet?
I've seen the memes. I don't know what it means.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I've seen the memes
I will give you a brief rundown real quick.
of
So,
Raymond.
just in general, like
Okay.
villagers. So, in Animal Crossing, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
like a tier of villagers that are like top tier, as in like everybody wants them.
Mm-hmm.
Marshall is one of them. Marshall is like a a hamster chipmunk type character, and I've known about him since like way back. So he's a pretty old character.
Right.
Raymond, on the other hand, is a newer character, and there's these things that Nintendo does, and they're called Amiibo Cards. And
Yeah.
basically, you can pay to get the exact villager that you want without having to search through like 400 mystery islands, which are basically like these islands where you can get resources, but also if you have open villager slots, they have villagers on them that you can take onto your island.
Uh-huh.
So these amiibo cards, you can just like put it into your game and you'll get that character that's on the card. Except there are some characters that are in Animal Crossing New Horizons that are so new that there are no amiibo cards for them. One of them is Raymond. You can't get him unless you find him. And so somehow within this entire time of like Animal Crossing becoming super, super popular, Raymond has become like I've heard like Marshall somewhere at the top too, but Raymond is like the top tier character.
So he's the
Everybody
person that
wants him.
everybody just wants.
Yeah, right. And I've seen like tweets about people offering like nudes for Raymond. I've seen eBay listings for like actual US money, and
Wow.
it's like there's like a whole like group of people that are just like selling them. And I will say, so
Yeah, go
if
on.
you there are like different resources that you can hop onto in order to like make your experience a little bit easier. You don't necessarily need it in order to make your gameplay any better, but
Mm-hmm.
like some people like to use those. One of them is there's like these two servers on Discord, and they have like different subsections that you can just click and you can get into that specific topic.
Right.
One of the discussions is like a free villager trade. So if you want to get a villager but you don't want to pay anything like currency wise for in game, then you can just go in there and just message whoever lists something and be like, hey, do you mind if I get that villager from you? And I've seen a couple of people list like a Raymond.
Yeah.
And like they'll say something like, I want an essay on why you feel like you want Raymond.
Oh my god, like that's amazing.
I've also seen I saw this one tweet like maybe 2 weeks ago now.
Right.
And somebody had Raymond on their island. Like as a villager resident and whatnot. And somebody direct messaged them and said, you don't deserve to have Raymond on your island. I can treat him better than you ever could.
Oh,
and I was like,
my god.
Jesus Christ, that's horrifying.
Just like some weird cult of Raymond.
It's I don't know why. I specifically feel like it might be because he can't be obtained via like Amiibo cards and whatnot. But I don't know how he got so popular.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't follow it, but at the same time, I see the memes and I'm just like, okay, what's the deal with this guy? It's like, does he give like more bells than usual as a villager or anything?
He's no different from any other villager. He's just super cute. Yeah.
Would you be mad if I start playing Animal Crossing and that's my default villager?
Me? No, I would not. So when I started Animal Crossing, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna try not to kick out a villager.
Yeah.
Because like I'm not like in a rush to like get all the characters that I want, you know. But I will say, I did kick out a villager very recently for a friend.
Oh, really?
So this is a very tight. Not tight, but controversial discussion. But I time travel.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know there are some people out there that are like, you know, time traveling cheats your experience and whatnot. But I'm too impatient to wait.
But the creator themselves said like, time travel is, you can do it. It's just, I guess they don't consider it cheating. That's what I'm trying to get at. I think the creators themselves have said that.
It's not necessarily going to enhance your experience to like time travel, because you know, like you can ruin things. Like there are a lot of things in the game that try to curb you from like time traveling. For example, you mentioned it earlier. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, like you just have to, like, if you do time travel, you have to be very careful about those things. But I for a fact am like the most impatient person in the world, so I'm always like, let me finish this part of my island real fast, and then I just jump and do it impulsively. But yeah, I did time travel for a little bit, because there is like methods out there to kicking out villagers, but I somehow have been getting like top tier characters, like as in accidentally finding them on islands. For example, a villager that I currently have on my island is Marshall, which is like on tier with Raymond up there. Another character that I actually found is this really cute character named Judy.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever seen her before. I will send you a picture, and if you want to put it into your video, you totally can do that.
Is it Judy with a Y or an I?
I got you. Don't even trip.
Okay.
But anyways, so there's a new character, and her name is Judy, and she's super cute. But I will say right now that I already knew from when I started that I was like, I think Judy is cute, but she wouldn't necessarily be like an immediate yes for me if I ran into her on a mystery island.
Okay.
But I did run into her on a mystery island, and my friend who I have a discussion with was like, oh my god, I really wanted this, and, you know, like telling me like she really wanted her. So I took her, and I was like, okay, if you can make space for her. I will hold on to her for you until you can make room, and I will try my best to kick her out and get her onto your island, even
Oh.
though it's going to hurt me to have to kick her out. Because she's a cute bear, and like I love bears. Bears are like my favorite animals. So like I was just like, this is going to hurt no matter what happens.
I could
So
see it. Yeah.
yeah, so I was just like, I will do it for you and sacrifice my own happiness and well-being in order to do it for you. But yeah, so I ended up getting Judy, and then
Mhm.
I time traveled, and now Judy is on her island, and I have unlimited visits to say hi.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but that was a time. I'm never doing that ever again.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know. I think we're both like in similar kind of wavelengths. It's like I think I would probably do that for a friend too, if I knew that they really wanted that character, and I'm like, oh shit, I just have this character. And it's just like,
Right. And I was like, I will do it for you. It's going to hurt me because I'm going to have to do everything in my possible power to like not talk to her,
mm-hmm.
have her have like the lowest friend count on my list and whatnot. So I was just like, I think you're adorable and you don't deserve me doing this to you. I'm so sorry.
Well, speaking of villagers living, did you you've seen Rooster Teeth content, right?
I see it every once in a while. I
Mm-hmm.
don't 100% keep track with them.
Okay, but so Gavin has been playing Animal Crossing, and
What did he
so
do?
you hit it on a nail. You asked what did he did.
What did he do? There's
So
only things that people do on this game.
so he tried terraforming, and he said it's a weird experience because he never played an Animal Crossing before that.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up terraforming and making a cliff community where like the villagers can like have like a good view, like they're
Mm-hmm.
living up in the mountains, right? He didn't think to put ramps, and then
So they're stuck up there.
and so they're stuck up there, and you know how the villagers have like their own schedules and everything.
Yeah.
um they ended up started getting sad that that Gavin wasn't taking care of the villagers and totally forgot to like make this ramp. And so by the end of it, like some of the villagers like, "Oh, it's okay, I'll just move, and this is a personal decision." And I was just like, oh my god, Gavin, what did you do?
That's so mean.
And he
Yeah,
didn't
well,
even so he didn't realize. And so he a villager comes up to him and so they're like, hey, I feel like
I
things
want to move.
like I want to move, things are not working out. And so he there's an option of saying like, okay, and oh no, don't do it, or
Right,
don't,
right,
don't
right.
leave. He just pressed okay.
Oh my god. That
Which is
actually is so mean.
and later in this video, I'll show the video later, but later in the video, they go visit that village's house, and it's like the wallpaper is like the like boxes wallpaper. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's like a bunch of packing boxes in the background and in the foreground, and and it just looks so sad. And she's just there, she's just an ostrich like sweeping the floor.
Yeah, that's what happens when they move. It's super sad. It takes
Yeah,
2 days for it to happen. But that's so mean. I can't believe he locked them into a top community.
unintentionally, by the way. So it was an unintentional like, I'm gonna trap you in a on a cliff community on your own.
You know what? I will say,
Yeah.
terraforming is new to me too,
Mm-hmm.
because the game that I started off with for Animal Crossing was New Leaf, and New Leaf didn't have like the whole thing of putting furniture outside,
Mm-hmm.
or like you can give villagers gifts that they'll put in their house and stuff. By the way, if you ever get Animal Crossing, Brian, do not give them fishes.
They absolutely hate fish.
No, 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 no. Because if you give them fishes, they will put it in their house, and their house aesthetic will be ruined. Don't give them fishes. I
Okay.
learned that the hard way. But anyway, um, yeah. So this whole entire thing with terraforming and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot is also new to me. I actually made like 2 different areas very recently
Mm-hmm.
on my island. The one that I did till I was like completely delirious last night was the museum area,
Mm-hmm.
which I showed earlier. There's a picture of Tom Nook, and he
Mm-hmm.
it's like the painting, the girl with the pearl earring, except
Mm-hmm.
it's Tom Nook instead.
Looking amazing.
Just added into here somewhere. But anyway, yeah, so there's like I just finished that area yesterday, and then in the back area there's like I have a frog on my island that
Mm-hmm.
I somehow got when my other friend kicked him out of her island, which
Mm-hmm.
happens. Like they'll like hop into different people's islands if they have slots. And his name is Wart Jr. He's like a little tiny frog, and he has like little warts everywhere. I originally was like, I don't really like you, and then he became one of my. He's like I have to keep him unless I find someone else type thing.
Is this catchphrase wart wart wart?
No, no,
He's a Halo 1 character.
no. He's actually super cute. He's like super tiny too. But anyway,
Okay.
so I made like a little Japanese inspired island for him specifically, and it has like a little sauna on the back, and it goes up.
Oh, that's awesome.
But like I was thinking too, I was like, what if he leaves? I'm just gonna have this island in the middle of my island that I like won't know what to do with it.
And then you have the power terraforming and you just destroy that little lake.
Right. Oh, I have a question.
Yeah, go on.
If you get Animal Crossing, would you
Yep.
be the type to make your entire island a certain theme, or would you make it so that there are small little areas with different themes to it?
I think I'm be more inclined to have like smaller areas with
Mm,
and themed, because I'm like, I don't know, that's just with the way my mind works. It's like I want an area that's kind of like preserved, kind of like natural, um from the beginning, you know what I mean?
yeah.
So
Hmm.
it's gonna be like its own like little central park area.
Right.
I think that would be a cool idea. It would just be like, oh, this is and like a little square in my island that's just preserved from the very beginning,
Mm,
and then all like different districts. So like, oh, this might be a little garden area, a little farming area,
hmm.
stuff like that.
I can tell you right now, there are like 2 outstanding themes of like villages or islands that I've seen so far.
Yeah.
One of them is the Japanese urban theme, where it's
Oh
like
yeah, yeah.
the streets are paved and you have like crosswalks and houses that are like lining the streets and shops and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one, which is like the complete opposite, is like cottage core.
Oh, so like each home has like this like big stretch of land,
Not well, you're only given a certain amount of land anyway, so there's only so much you can do.
right?
But cottage core is essentially like it's very natural. It looks
Mm-hmm.
kind of like your house just came out of the woods.
Mm.
And it's like that's like their entire island theme. It's just like very foresty, very natural looking, a lot of like different flowers and whatnot, and very little like electricity and whatnot.
Yeah, I think I might do that. I think I might do
The
like
cottage core.
yeah, like the cottage, but I think at the very top of the island have it a little bit more urban, so I could play with the forced perspective.
You should totally do the forced perspective thing. I know Vincent's done that.
Yeah, I seen that, and I was just like, I kind of want to get in that.
Did he show
The
you
game,
his
not
island?
Vincent.
Oh.
No, not yet. See, the thing is that I have my brother's Switch,
Right.
and I know that if I get my own Switch, then my island's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is that should I just get Animal Crossing just so I could just travel to people's islands and just like hang out with people virtually, or should I just cough up the $300 and just get a Switch?
Sorry, I had a thing in my throat. Sorry. No, you should cough up to $300. I'm just kidding, but obviously, like I think if you have a passion for it, and then on top of that, you feel like the Switch will be something that you can use to entertain yourself. I think, like with every person that I've talked to about this, because obviously there's like a huge hype train for like the Switch and the Animal Crossing currently. And
Right.
oh, you already know my experience with the Switches about how it took me a month and a half and I managed to get it in quarantine, which is an achievement in itself.
Oh shit. Yeah.
But
yeah, you told me this website, Zoolerts.
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 It's pretty good. I switched to using that and I found it in 2 days.
Yeah, I'm just gonna see.
Just let the rooster blare in your ears to let you know when it's available. But yeah, no, I've had a lot of discussions about this because I was very firmly like, as soon as I knew Animal Crossing was coming out, I was like, oh, I gotta, But there are like other games that I'm really excited to be getting in the future. Obviously, Animal Crossing is my preference right now, but I think for people who are kind of like very on the fence about whether or not they should be or should not be getting one, I think if you're the type of person to enjoy playing games and have like a wide variety that you can kind of like pick and choose from, then by all means, just don't get it if it's not something you feel like you need and you're just doing it because everyone else is doing it.
Yeah, I think maybe a little later. I just started working, so maybe a next paycheck. Yeah, I always tell that to my friends. It's so like, oh, you want to go out to eat? It's like, no, I'll just wait until the next paycheck.
Yo, you should come visit my island though. I'll take you around.
Flying. What is your island called?
My island is called Walu Isle.
Walu, like Waluigi?
See, that's what I knew people were gonna say it for, but no. I was talking to my friend, and he was offering me some ideas as to what I could potentially name it. And I told him I wanted to do maybe like a sun and moon thing, but everybody was doing it, so I was like, maybe I shouldn't. And he was like, why don't you use like this name? It's like our reason as to why, like, it's like, you know how like we have like the Greek tales of like why things happen in the earth. It was like their equivalent to why the sun traveled across the sky.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's how that came from. It is not Waluigi, but I have thought about telling people that it is. Just for the memes.
I didn't even know what to call my island.
Bryan.
Bryan. You came up with that super fast.
I'm just kidding, obviously. Westworld.
Westeros? Westworld?
No, dude, if you named it Westworld, that'd be horrible.
Hey, come out into my island.
Promise there aren't any animatronic robots that are out there to kill you.
You can do whatever you want.
Oh, God.
While we collect all your data.
Who knows? Nintendo's probably doing that right now.
That's kind of true.
But yeah.
But have you ever visited any horror type islands?
No, but I have watched a lot of like walkthrough videos recently, and there was one of my favorite islands who I actually knew about the island before the person did the tour on the island.
Right.
It's this island that's split between a couple. And both of them are animators. So one of them's like a sketch artist, and the other one's like, well, either way, they're both in like that realm of work.
Yeah.
And so they split their island like down the middle.
So they had a divorce and they had to split the island down the middle. I'm just kidding.
No, it was just like it's just that the half of the island is like the wife doing all the terraforming and whatnot, and the other side is the husband's. But they both made like an entire story for that island, and they have a beer garden in there.
Ooh, a beer garden sounds awesome on an island.
Yeah, I need to show it to you later on. I will send it to you after we're done. But it's a really nice island.
There was I should share you some Rooster Teeth stuff. They're doing a show where they basically go and rate people's islands. And it's kind of calming in the sense that like, oh, it's just people going and traveling and just to see other people's islands, and you get like a little inspiration in the sense of like, oh, I could probably do that on my island or something like that.
You know what? I had a guy earlier today come onto my island, and I was trading with him for something because I have like a certain colored like work table that you can build things on. but I wanted a different color and he had it and he wanted the color that I had, so we swapped.
Okay.
But so I don't know if you've seen this because you've watched like Animal Crossing videos. When you go onto another person's island, you like do a flyby, right?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. So by coincidence, I somehow ended up like the island part that I worked on is all parts that you see when you fly by.
Okay.
But everything else around it is like not done yet. It's just flat land. But where you fly over, like on my island, is worked on. So he was flying over, and then he messaged me on the message thing that we were using. He was like, "Oh, your island looks so cool. Do you mind if I like do a walkthrough and just like look through?" And I was like, "Yeah, no, go for it."
By the end of it, he's like, "Oh."
Well, I mean, obviously, I told him, I was like, "It's definitely like a major work in progress. Like, it's super not done, but you're free to walk around." And he was like, "Well, going through your island makes me want to work on my island." And I was like, "I felt that."
Oh, I think that's a nice sentiment.
Yeah. I understand because I've seen a lot of people's islands and they're super nice, and I'm just like, I haven't worked on mine that much yet, but I'm working on it.
Yeah, I've seen people trying to make their islands look like Disneyland right now, and I'm just
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh wow.
there's so many different islands that are so cool. Like I've seen the castles, I've seen people do like kind of like a Venice-esque type thing where it looks like there are buildings off the sides of like a river.
Oh, okay.
And I've seen like what else have I seen? I've seen people do like pixel art of like a skyscraper and they just put it as a forced perspective in the background. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and I've seen people do an island that looks like Danny DeVito.
Someone did an island that looked like Danny DeVito.
Yep, they made an island that looks like Danny DeVito, and then there was somebody that made a whole room dedicated to Danny DeVito. He had a shrine, and the wallpaper was all trash.
Oh my goodness.
And so everybody would be like, "We're here to see Danny DeVito."
I have a quick question. Have you seen Animal Talking before? Have you heard of it?
No, is this like a web machinima series?
Okay, so there's a Twitch show that they showed the VODs on YouTube, and it's called Animal Talking. The guy who hosts it actually was a writer on what's that Star Wars movie? Rogue One.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was a writer on there. And he started it off with his friends as them like coming onto his island, and like there's like his room in his basement is basically converted into like a studio setup.
Okay.
And like very recently it like picked up like a whole bunch of traction. And so there have been a whole bunch of celebrities that have been going on there. T-Pain was on there like last week.
Holy shit. No, I see I just Googled it real quick. Felicia Day, Naomi Kyle.
And then you know who was there? Danny Trejo was on there with Elijah Wood on the same day.
Oh my god. You know what? I'm gonna have some time watching this because they're about an hour each. So
yeah. So I looked into it. So the guy he'll either have like people stand in for the celebrities because apparently a lot of people have been contacting him and wanting to go on the show even though they don't have Animal Crossing. And sometimes the actual people who do have Animal Crossing do go on to his show. So like Elijah Wood got the whole headline about going to another person's island and selling turnips, and Danny Trejo was like on Twitter saying that he had Animal Crossing. So they both ended up on there. And then apparently AOC might be going on there.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a really good show. It's really entertaining. It's all in Animal Crossing too.
I should check it out. I've been kind of starved for a little content. I don't know. I got HBO Max and I'm just like I'm paralyzed by choice right now.
Oh, you messaged me the other day, right? And you were like, "Oh my god, HBO Max has all the Studio Ghibli movies and stuff." I literally just watched Castle in the Sky yesterday.
Oh really? Oh, did you just get HBO Max or you're using Family?
I use Netflix.
Oh, you use Netflix. Oh, do you VPN or something?
Yeah.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. There's VPN services everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, so it's easy to do that.
Sponsor? No, just kidding.
I honestly, if I only wish right now.
One day, but yeah. Yeah, so that show's really good. I think he took a break last week, so I think he's doing it again this week. It's really
So it's
fun.
gonna be like a bi-weekly thing.
He does actually a lot of them. He has a Twitch stream, I believe, and I think it's his name is Gary Whitta, or it's
Yeah.
under Animal Talking. It's something like that,
Yeah.
and it's all in Animal Crossing, which is the best. But it's a really really good show. I've had it playing sometimes in the back when I like do my own thing, or if I'm like terraforming on my own island, and just listening to it and how chaotic it is just makes me laugh.
I like his YouTube icon is his Animal Crossing character.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
So he has his own Twitch channel and everything. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Now it's like, in terms of the entertainment industry, it's like there's so many people that are using technology for like streaming and all of those things to make more content.
I did think about this very recently. I was wondering how all of the like late night hosts were doing, because you know how a lot of them have switched over to do like online shows and whatnot. So I wonder how that transition period is for those creators. Like, I would imagine slightly difficult, but I don't know.
They do have bigger teams to do things
Yeah.
like that, and not to say that I make excuses for not having a show, but at the same time, like, for me, it's just like, okay, I just have myself.
Yeah.
So they have a group of people, rightfully so, like helping produce, do all the technology and all of those things, to do that. I think smaller creators like you and me just have to kind of scrap around with what we have. But then again, the tools that's available to us, they work very well. We're using Zoom right now to do this podcast.
Right. I wonder because you know, I think a lot of entertainment before has always been the online space trying to adapt to traditional media, which is usually how most things work when it comes to entertainment and whatnot. You have like these online personalities who leave the online platforms in order to become bigger celebrities in real life, yada yada.
Right.
And so it's definitely a weird shift to see, traditional media try to shift to match the online media persona. So I would imagine that there's still some degree of difference, especially because, there are these late night hosts who have all of this kind of like financial backing and whatnot. And in comparison to a lot of smaller creators, like I know it's been a discussion in YouTube, especially since all of these creators have shifted over onto their platforms, that like a lot of smaller under the radar creators are kind of getting pushed under for these other bigger companies.
Funny enough, John Krasinski's Some Good News like kind of wrapped up like last week, and then I think he got into hot water because the way the messaging came out, because I think CBS bought the rights to do Some Good News, and then a lot of people are saying, oh, so just because you're a celebrity and like you created this thing and now you're just gonna go off and sell it, like, even though you have all these fans and stuff. I'm just like, on one end, I would want to celebrate his success because that's cool. Like, I feel like that's something to be like, hey, he did it, and good for him. And he got a deal out of it. But I can understand why people can be very attached, because it's seemed very personal, when it is something that he made on his own and everything like that, and it's going to be transferred to another hand, which is CBS. And so, like, I could understand both ends in that case. Is just that, it just,
I mean, the way that I see that situation is, typically when it comes to like online creations and whatnot, there's like a degree of realness to it, or authenticity, I guess is the better word. And John Krasinski creating the show seemed like something that was very appropriate for that time. But I think for creators who consume YouTube and online media, we expect this degree of realness whenever whoever does these type of shows. And so when the news came out that it was gonna, hi, Yeah.
Hi.
All right, we're back. Anyway,
Yeah.
Cut that out. Cut that out. Just kidding.
I'll try.
But anyway, so there's like this expected degree of realness,
Mm-hmm.
and I think when the news came out that he sold it and that Some Good News was going to be put behind a paywall and he wasn't even going to be hosting anymore,
Mm-hmm.
I think that idea that we perceived of realness from him basically got shattered. So it felt more of like a betrayal for viewers.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily saying that this is my view because I never actually like took the time to watch Some Good News. So I know about it. I just never was a part of it. So, but I think that form of betrayal in terms of like your like the feelings and the authenticity and just how very homemade it felt from a creator, it probably fell through and broke that kind of degree of like of I guess trust.
Yeah, between like creator and audience.
Exactly. Yeah. Like,
and I feel like I think Jack Black is probably the best example of a creator coming from the other way. Like, he's from established media. He's an actor that's like in all of these like big budgeted Hollywood movies, but he has a very genuine kind of attitude about himself that like it does lend itself to like, okay, yeah, he can fit in this YouTube online world,
right,
like
right.
it doesn't seem off. I don't know, I just think it was just kind of a bad move, but CBS saw value in it, then they purchased it. Personally, I haven't watched it either, but if it was up to me, I would just probably, what, let's just stop this for now and see where we go later, for John Krasinski. But
I mean,
I just want to be positive. I feel like all the hate and stuff, I'm just like, do we want to do this right now at this moment? I'm just like, he got his paycheck by the end of it, so I don't know.
I mean, in the end, I think it's his decision anyways, what he does with it. It's his creation, And I'm pretty sure, like, John Krasinski is a busy guy, He's got work to do. He's this huge celebrity. So, after everything is said and done, and knock on wood, when COVID kind of like passes and everything is kind of more settled down, we probably wouldn't see that much content coming back from that show because he might be busy with other things that are a part of his career. So
yeah.
So some stuff just it just happens that way sometimes,
Yeah. And one thing that I did want to talk about, you said you're still in college, right?
Yeah.
As far as I know, you're still in college. How was that transition from going from physical classrooms to like going into learning online? How did that go?
I mean, for me specifically, it was super difficult. Not to like go into too much detail, but like obviously COVID took like a big hit on like a lot of people's mental health, and I probably wasn't there completely either. But me individually, I've always been the type of person to do a lot better if I go out of my house in order to do something, to be productive and whatnot, because if I just stay at home, I don't have the motivation to want to like do it as much, and that got amplified because of everything that was happening. So when we switched on to online learning, it didn't necessarily feel like it was too off the mark of what we were doing already, with the exception of we weren't meeting for in-class discussions. But I know I have a couple of friends out there that mentioned that there were professors who, after they switched into like doing the online learning, they raised the workload because they assumed because students were at home they'd be able to handle it, which obviously is not the case. And I was lucky enough that I had a professor who basically was like, you know what, like we'll lessen the load to make it easier for everybody in order to cope with it, because like I have stuff going on, you got stuff going on, like there's a lot happening. I know for a fact that my campus is doing it so that this particular semester you either get credit or no credit. So it doesn't affect you if you necessarily fail, but you do get credit if you pass.
Okay. So like letter grades is not like a thing?
So the difference between doing like the typical thing where you get like the 4, the 3 or whatever,
Right,
versus credit, no credit, it's like you either did it or you didn't. But if you didn't, like, that's fine. It doesn't affect your GPA.
Okay.
Yeah, you just get no credit for the class. So it basically is like you never took it at all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Because I think if the timeline's correct, you probably started school back up again in February, right?
Yeah.
And so that's when everything we got like the first reports, and I think Seattle kind of got the first few cases and stuff like that.
Right.
And
And
so,
then
yeah.
I think for now, at least for us,
Mm-hmm.
fall is also going to be online as well.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so it's a hard time. I feel bad for students right now, especially the ones that were graduating, because I think graduation is a big deal. I mean, not for every single person, and there are people out there that are graduating that are like, yeah, it's just a paper, it's no big deal. But this particular situation has eliminated the option for people or students to choose whether or not they get to show off their achievements, and I think that's a bit sad. But I think with kind of how COVID has been, I think, like, as much as it hurts for me to see all of these students not get their graduation, I think for their safety and the safety of other students around, I think it had to be done, type thing. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot about what's been happening with COVID has been, in my opinion, kind of like I don't necessarily like how everything is going, but I'd rather have this situation than have more people die type of opinion. That's been most of my opinion for a majority of the time that COVID's been happening.
Yeah, I think that's a very measured and almost kind of, in a weird way, kind of positive to some degree. It's just like, it's an acknowledgement of like, yeah, this could probably been way worse than it could have been,
Right.
And I'm not trying to point fingers or say like there was a singular person that did it. I feel like, no, it's just kind of, there's been efforts all around. There's a lot of good intentions, for people to
Right.
To try to do good, and that's the hope.
Yeah, I think this situation is definitely not a black and white situation. It's, you can easily acknowledge that the situation that we're in is bad, but it's a necessity to keep people safe, which I think, as news reports have been coming out in this past week, in this past month, like, a lot has changed. There's been a lot more that's been happening very recently, whether it be like, I don't know, just oppositions to that idea, I guess, would be the best way to put it. But I do firmly believe that for the safety of everybody and whatnot, like, it's better to take the precautions, because, like, later down the line, when our kids look back on it, or future generations, like, there will be things that we will miss out on. Like, there will be things that we missed the mark, and
Right.
we didn't do correctly. But we're in the experience and in the moment right now. So there's no way for us to be able to accurately know what's right or wrong until we get to the point of hindsight. So
yeah, it's so easy playing Monday night, like Monday morning coach, like, and just be like, hey, we should have learned from this,
right.
Even I think for us, it's like, we thought it wasn't going to be a big deal until later, you know what I mean? Like, once
Right.
we didn't get a job anymore, like, I think there was that wishful thinking, like, we will just go through this and all of this stuff, like, back in March. And then now we're at this kind of chapter of apparently trying to open back up again, which,
Right.
I may have my personal feelings, but I do understand the frustration of folks that feel like, there is, whether you want to acknowledge it or not, it's like there is going to be an economic problem for people to stay closed.
Right.
So it's just trying to weigh that balance and trying to see, like, okay, can we do this and can we do it safely? And my personal opinion always been like, okay, like I'm all for opening up back again, but we got to have a plan. That's that's my personal feelings on it. I would I would be more comfortable that testing would be like a wider range, and also subsidized to the point that the test doesn't get you bankrupt.
Right. Right. And
Or yeah. I don't
yeah,
know if that's the case right now. But medical system in the US has always been like, it's always been, sort of money's the key factor. So
mhm.
so that's why I say those things is like, unless there's a guarantee that, okay, it can be free or subsidized, then I'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll be willing out to go and get a test if I feel bad, or like regardless of how I feel, because I just want to make sure that I'm healthy so I could do the job that I can do.
Mhm.
So yeah.
I completely agree. I know enough when everything started happening. I went out of my way to not really see anybody, and I
Mhm.
self quarantined and stayed home a majority of the time whenever I could, in order to just stay safe, because I didn't want anybody to get sick. And
Mhm.
I think there are a lot of people who probably could have said, like, I could have just gone out. It shouldn't have been that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I think, especially with these kind of situations, people don't realize the severity of something until that something happens to them.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, as much as I can acknowledge, like, the economy is horrible right now, the situation right now is just horrible in general.
Mhm.
I'd I'd rather take that sacrifice than get to the point of it being too late.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't want to see, people get hurt
Mm.
because of a dumb mistake that I made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That what terrifies me, because it's like, because I do have family members that can be at risk, and I do food sorting.
Mhm.
I wouldn't call it a food bank. It was like, this organization was never built to be a food bank at
Mhm.
all, ever. Like, we're just there for services for K through 12.
But I'm assuming that's like what resulted as, like, from everything that happened.
Yeah, for everything that happened, we just pivoted to trying to provide food for the community.
Right.
So, and I'm terrified if I brought something back home. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And the fact that even in my city, the city I live in the LA area, like, they even have their own counter for
Mhm.
COVID cases, and like the fact that every day there is like a little bit more people get on that list and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just, it gets more personal, I guess, and I feel like it's more um scary, and
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. It's like there's a lot more words that I could probably get into that, but
Yeah.
it's like the anxiety of it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Every day, as I we keep going through the situation and whatnot, I always have to remind myself that as much as everything has started to shift in my head and feel like it's
Hmm.
normal, and like I feel like I need to actively recognize my complacency about the situation and realize that I shouldn't be complacent about it. I have to constantly be attentive to the situation, because it's not as if, like, it'll 100% be better and okay
Hmm.
yet, so.
Yeah, and I think it's just to be well informed,
Mm,
and not. I think for me, it's like not thinking that there's going to be a one singular solution to this problem, or that
yeah.
it'll be fixed over a short amount of time, and just trying to be measured on that end, and I'm not trying to be defeatist or pessimistic or anything like that. I just, if I try to make my expectations so high, then I'll be always constantly disappointed.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I feel like when it comes to something that's so like a threat that you literally can't see, when it comes to something like that, you for me personally, I feel like you just take it day by day, and you try to get information as much as possible, and you just hope for the best for your neighbors. Like I try to make it a point that, like, hey, like, if I'm gonna be cutting grass or something, I'll try to help my neighbor. Like, they're old, so I'll try to help cut their grass too. Or if I see that they're going out a lot, I'll just be like, hey, what's up? You good? Do you need anything or anything like that? And just
Yeah.
checking in.
Mhm.
And that's just kind of the hope right now. Just trying to be a good person for other people. And I know while we're recording this right now, it's just like, things are so polarizing, and like now, I did, it's a dark joke, but it's like I was talking to my some family members. It's like, when I thought of like I need a break from coronavirus news, I didn't want racism to come back.
Yeah, no. That I'm still speechless about how everything has been. Not because of the situation per se, but like, like, I remember growing up and going to school, and you'd get these lessons, and they'd be like, oh, this happened decades or like a century ago, which to us seems like a long time, but in reality is not too far along. So,
Yeah.
I, as a young child who didn't know any better, would always constantly assume like, oh well, things are definitely a lot better now. And so this entire situation with everybody and George Floyd and all of that is kind of a rude awakening, not in the sense that it's rude, but more in the sense that it's kind of like also a necessity to show and magnify the inequality in the US right now. So
yeah, it's just seeing that video for me, it's just like, why does that have to happen? Why? It's a, I don't know, it's a difficult subject, and I think I don't have all the data for personally for myself to really have 100% an opinion on, but I just feel, it's almost a cycle, and it's scary. And to me, as somebody that helps out and works in a high school, and I feel like the pitfalls of the reason why, to me personally, I'm not trying to speak for anybody else at all, but the fact that we don't canonize the problems of what the US has done to minorities in this country, like the fact that we just say, oh, we did it, we had the civil rights movements of the 60s and all of this stuff, and like we don't own up to mistakes. I think that's that's a big issue.
right.
And like, even like, I've been seeing these posts on Facebook, and people who's been sharing it to me. It's like, yeah, it's like, I think they're trying to say like, oh, it's not just white people hating on people of color. It's like there's people of color on people of color, which is true. Like, that's there. Like, there's a reason why that exists. But I feel like because we don't canonize all the we don't talk about the Chinese Exclusion Act as much as we do in high school, for people to understand like what we did was really kind of screwed up, to some degree, and just kind of admit that, like what's so wrong about admitting those things, like if we want to make a better community, why can't we be like other countries that like say like, hey, listen, we done the Holocaust, that's really fucked up, we're gonna tell you in great detail why that's fucked up.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah.
I feel like, obviously, like the situation of minorities, depending on whichever minority group you're in, is always going to be a discussion topic, but even as the situation has developed, I've kind of had to reevaluate some of my own opinions about things, because like, as much as we can all say that all like minority issues are very significant issues, which that's definitely the case, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It goes without saying that there are certain minorities that are much more privileged than other ones, and
That's
I
true.
feel like I can definitively say that Asian Americans, as much as we do experience racism and, you know, exclusion as people of color sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, there is a certain amount of privilege being Asian American or an Asian in general has in comparison to being a Black American in the United States.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
recognizing that difference and pointing it out to your peers and the community that you're in, and also supporting those other minorities and Black Americans who are dealing with all of this right now is
Mm-hmm.
a very significant thing that Asian Americans and Asians in general have to do in order to make sure that equality will eventually get to the point of reaching every single minority group.
Yeah, and yeah, you kind of hit the head on hit the nail on the head, because it's how much of our creature comforts as Asian Americans is built upon us saying, okay, yeah, we'll follow your rules 100% as the model minority. You know what I mean? And that's
Right.
true. um you know, there's some people that benefit from that 100%,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
And I think part of me is also like, yeah, I am a product of that, but at the same point I'd feel uncomfortable if somebody doesn't have a roof over their head, you know, at the
Right.
same time, or they
Mhm.
don't have a meal, they don't have meals for the next week or two or a
Mhm.
month or a year, you know, like, or they don't have job security, you know.
Mhm.
And so, like, although I'm a product and the um I guess benefactor or beneficiary of that, like, I also kind of feel like I still feel afraid of other people that don't have much. And that's why
Yeah.
that's why I'm in the work I am, trying to help communities as much as possible.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
in the end it's staying aware of what our actions are,
Mm-hmm.
as well as, you know, kind of like understanding that, you know, like as the Black Lives Matter movement continues to push forward,
Right.
it's a symbol that will eventually get to the point of, you know, like helping the rest of our minorities in the United States and elsewhere. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
they've, you know, Black Americans and just people of African American descent have been in the United States for, you know, centuries. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they've dealt with inequality, they've dealt with, you know, Jim Crow and the civil rights movement, and they were pioneers for that. And so, you know, I think as we have to do our part as being minority groups in order to kind of elevate the issues of our
Mm-hmm.
other fellow minority groups in order to kind of push their message forward and
Mm-hmm.
help other, I guess, other people realize why it is that all of these things are happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do find it kind of like, I did have a discussion about this earlier today, and um like with all the stuff that's happening specifically today, which has
Mm-hmm.
been like the looting and and whatever, you know, like I do think that some people are taking advantage of this entire situation in
Mm-hmm.
order to do those things for their own benefit, which I, you know, that negates what the whole purpose of all of this was for.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It's it's been really hard to see how everything has been happening, but I do actively in my head acknowledge that like all of this had to have happened for us to be more aware
Mm-hmm.
of the inequalities that are happening for
Yeah.
people. So
And I think I think it's a contribution of coronavirus, and like it like slowly started, like it's like a ticking time bomb almost, you know. You had one incident after another, and you had Ahmaud Arbery, and you had the lady in Central Park calling the police, you know, for practically no reason.
yeah.
And George Floyd, right?
Hmm.
And you had this case, and it's just, it's like it's the powder keg that kind of exploded, you know.
I
And
mean, I think the situation has definitely been trickling to the point of where it is now. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like when COVID started happening in the U.S., you know, there was an uptick in racial crimes against Asians.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, obviously there's kind of like a degree of separation between Asians and other minority groups, as well as Asians with the group that's in power. Right. Because we technically don't really belong anywhere, and we don't have allyship because we haven't gone out of our way to support our fellow people. You know what I mean? And I think that opinion obviously is definitely changing now. Like, we're trying to do more to be allies and to help with like different situations, you know? So when all of this started happening with COVID and all of those like racial attacks, I think that was kind of like the beginning point, at least for me, to see all of this. And then like as stuff slowly developed and then like escalated to a head when the horrible thing that happened to George Floyd happened, like it only kind of made sense that this was what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Do we want to really end it on this?
we can switch topics and talk about something else for a
That's
little
true.
bit.
I would say just to put up, because I had a lot of thought about, you know, what's been happening when it comes to the protests and the rioting and stuff like that. And what I came to the conclusion of is like, you know, earlier this year and in the fact 2019, all of 2019, Hong Kong has been burning, you know, like it's been going through this fight for democracy and all of these things. And, you know, the fight against the police, you know, their social contract with China has been deteriorating, you know, with an emerging country like China, like they're enforcing their power, you know, and that is something that scares like Hong Kong citizens that were built upon this kind of like this notion of democracy, you know, used to be a British colony and everything. And so, you know, like when that happened, like of course people are going to get angry, you know, because that's their personal freedoms. Like nobody wants to be thrown inside a jail, right? For no apparent reason, or just for having a negative comment of the Chinese Communist Party, right? And they're rioting, they're breaking windows and doing all of those things, right? And for me, it's just like, yeah, that's part of, you know, trying to gain independence. But if we flip the coin off on to this end, and we're saying what they're doing out in like places like downtown LA and all of this stuff, we're saying it's wrong. It's like, well, if we're gonna say that this is wrong in LA, right? Then what are we saying about the people in Hong Kong? You know, like try to really dilute those arguments there. Like, if you're gonna say that it's wrong in LA, then what is it about this movement that is wrong to you? You know, why are you saying those things? And for me, it's like going back to the whole social contract thing. And I think Trevor Noah really hit the nail on the head on this conversation, is that a minority group that feels that they've been systemically killed off, right? By people of power. And their social contract says that they hold their hand up again, they hold their right hand and pledge allegiance to a flag, you know, to say that they'll protect and serve people. And that's a social contract. They're there to protect and serve. If people are dying, right, from them, then that social contract has been deteriorated, you know. And it's going to take so many people, and I think that's the scary part too, for that contract to be broken, for property to get destroyed. And, you know, I also don't like it too, but at the same point, it's like I can see where they come from, you know. And if I, you know, like of 2019 says like, yeah, like fuck China and all of this stuff, right? Fuck the Chinese government, not Chinese or China, like citizens, right? No, Chinese government. If people are saying fuck the Chinese government, right, and they'd be willing to destroy property and do those things, then wouldn't I be okay if that's happening here too? You know, just those are the arguments I feel like people should really have a conversation about, and at least in the Asian community, if they're trying to weigh the scales of like what is right and what is wrong, you know?
Mm-hmm. And being like one thing is okay, but the other isn't.
Yeah, and you know, and it was hard, you know, because for me it's just like, you know, property rights is a big thing for me. You know, this is my family's house. You know, it's like there's history of us as Cambodian immigrants to this house, you know. And I want to protect it as much as possible. And for a lot of Americans, that is a very big deal, you know. But at the same time, like, you know, like if there's a large group of people that says like, listen, like our liberties have been taken away, and if the people that are sworn in to protect us are not doing that and they're out killing other people, like, you know, that's a really fucked up thing. Like if you really strip away like, oh, it's happening in the United States and stuff like that, and a country is doing a government agency is doing that to their citizen, like strip away the meaning behind being an American and everything, that's just fucked up, you know.
Right.
So I don't know, I'm getting very well-winded because also it's like this is just something that I've been dwelling on for a long time, you know.
Yeah.
And now I'm at this point is like talking about it to a wider audience, and I know that I'm probably gonna get a lot of crap for it, or I'll get a lot of support for it, but I don't know. A part of me it just says like I just need to be very genuine when it comes to something like this, and try to really just talk about it, and you know, I feel like, you know, there may be mistakes, and I'm willing to learn from it.
Right. I think you know, like there's only so much we can say as the people that we are, because you know we aren't those people that are experiencing it. We have our own privileges for being Asian and being Cambodian, you know, and looking the way that we look.
Right.
And, you know, we can't 100% have the exact same life experiences as somebody who doesn't look like us. But I think we have to go out of our way to acknowledge those differences between like every single person in order to kind of realize what's going on and why it's happening, and get a better understanding for, you know, why everything is happening the way that it is. And I think, you know, educating other people who are in our communities about the situation and telling them, you know, like the reasons as to why it's happening that way, and being more informed about it, and you know, learning more about these situations and life experiences of other people. I think down the line that'll, you know, improve our own opinions, and maybe, you know, even down the line, like if you and I ever watch this video back in the future, like our entire viewpoint about this will be completely different. And, you know, I think this entire situation will always forever be shifting, and as people who are, you know, kind of flawed people to begin with, like we're always never going to be 100% perfect. You know, we have to use these experiences to further our own opinions, and to learn and, you know, get a better sense of how the world works. And you know, our opinions won't necessarily change unless we kind of confront it with ourselves and kind of mull it over. So having some form of dialogue, whether it's, you know, like you talking to me or you talking to a bigger platform, will help to improve your own standpoint of what the situation is in the future. So
I just been kind of like, you know, like I had conversations with, you know, some people about this, and it's just like, I just feel just scared in the sense that like, wow, it's like there's not that many people that I know that's be willing to be like, you know, let's help our fellow person, you know. And you know, it's just, I don't know, I'm just not, for me it's like I'm always a very empathic person, and I talked about this with somebody else. It's just like, you know, if I see people being wronged, I'm like, that's not right, to me, you know. So,
I think it takes a degree of empathy to get to that point. Like, you know, I will firmly say that I don't think everybody is on the same level of empathy. Like, there obviously is always going to be a degree of separation, especially in these type of discussions and topics and whatnot. But I think like your level of empathy is probably high enough that you can actively acknowledge that if something is happening, like, and you know that it's wrong, you would probably go out of your way to do something. And I think that says a lot about you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think everybody in the world can fully understand and have that kind of sympathy for other people. It's something that you kind of have to learn and refine over time. So.
Yeah, and for me to expect that everybody has to feel the same way, like that's really, I don't know. I don't want to say selfish, but like it's just kind of like, why would I want to expect everybody to think that everything I would say is the best, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like um has to be taking that gospel almost, you know? Like
Right.
um and I don't see myself as that almost, you know, like I'm always trying to evolve and be a better person and like learning more, and like there's always space to understand like, hey, what I said like, you know, like in the future it's like, oh, what I said, you know, 2 years ago may not reflect how I feel now, you know.
Right.
Those sort of conversations. So
I mean, I do think that, you know, as time goes on, you know, people will change. Like
yeah.
I definitely know that the person that I am now, I probably would never have been here if it wasn't for the experiences that taught me to become the person that I am in the first place.
True.
So, you know, it's constantly like a game of trial and error,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, obviously in this landscape is a lot more difficult to be able to freely make mistakes and be able to change from them. But um, you know, I do firmly believe that there are people out there that can change. I do believe that there are
Mm-hmm.
some that probably wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
either. And I don't know. I think it's better to learn from the experiences that you get as life comes at you,
Right.
and to evolve your opinions and change it to base around those, like, those experiences.
Yeah. If I learn anything from this whole pandemic is that at one point I was like, oh, let's hope that there's a cure like right around the corner, or oh, this is just a problem that's outside of the United States or something like that. You know, like I had those thoughts. I literally had the thought saying, oh, this is not as a big deal as the flu. Or at one point I was like, the mask is meant for medical for professionals. Like the N95 mask, I would not wear it because it's like it's meant for medical professionals. You know, I've had those thoughts too. You know what I mean? And so I just grapple with the fact that like, oh yeah, like that even that like that from month to month, like those ideas can change too. You know, as
Mm-hmm.
using the pandemic as an example, like now I'm just like, is it even worth it going to the market right now? You know what I mean? I could just use whatever I have in my pantry or something like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like washing my hands almost to the point of like almost ashy, you know? Or I need to use more lotion, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, same. I
Yeah.
mean, at this point, it's like, you know, to end things on a lighter note, I guess it's like you only can live day by day right now with
Yeah.
everything that's happening. You know, like everybody has coping like mechanisms that are
Mm-hmm.
unique to the own person. Like I know, you know, I've been playing Animal Crossing a shit ton. My mom's been knitting.
Yeah.
You know, there are people that are doing Zumba or like, you know, learning something that they never had time for. And I think that in itself is kind of like a kind of happy reminder that, you know, as much as, you know, the situation has had a lot of people down in the dumps and stuff, that, you
Mm-hmm.
know, human resilience is very strong in people. And
Yeah.
obviously, you know, as we were discussing earlier, there's a lot happening right now, and
Mm-hmm.
with right reason. Like it's for a good reason, it's
Mm-hmm.
understandable. It not necessarily a good reason per se, but it's with reason that those things are happening. And I think even after today, like after tomorrow, after the next month or so, like we still will have to do our best to live day by day and keep going and do do whatever we can in order to keep going and like just to maintain ourselves. So
Yeah. Yeah. To kind of, I think just to kind of grapple with ourselves, you know,
mhm.
because ultimately, as I feel, you know, like you are like your best solution and your
Mhm.
best and your worst enemy. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like what you do to help cope can help you, or also can break you. You know,
Mhm.
so
Which is why I'm saying get Animal Crossing. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, get a Switch.
Hell yeah.
Just to finish up, because I think at this point I think we're hitting an hour. Not
Has it been
wait.
only an hour? It's been
No. I think it could have been 2 hours at this point.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a while. We haven't hung out at all. Yeah. So I think part of why it went so long, other than the fact that we talked about coronavirus, we talked about school.
We talked about a lot of things.
We talked about a lot of things. We also talked about the protests and the riots and all of that, and it's heavy. I'm like, for me personally, it's just like shaking in a sense that, like, it's just, I feel at one point scared that I'm talking, but at the same point, it's like I need to get these things off my chest, almost,
Yeah.
But just to kind of close things off is like our plans in the future, because you're my co-host.
Right.
I hope to continue more the anime portion of this. I did start rewatching a lot of anime. Funny enough, one of our Zoom conversations with our students was to watch a soundless voice.
Heck yeah.
A silent voice. And it was interesting because it's like high school age. I just had to tell them, like, hey, listen, like, there's some heavy subject matter here, but I feel like it's worth it, because this is a conversation. This is a movie and a conversation that American Western audience are not having, and I feel like I want to give you a trigger warning, because this movie will go into those things about bullying and suicide and redemption and stuff like that, So I was like, this is such a good anime to get people watching. I feel bad because my niece was like middle school when she saw it, and I'm like, oh, but she said she loved the movie by the end of it. So I'm just like, okay. I had a good reaction with it, even though it's very tough subject matter. It's not the easy I love you, or movie about action or something. So
when it comes to kids, I think a lot of people have a tendency to kind of like sugarcoat discussions that they have with children, and I think sometimes kids are even smarter than adults themselves. So,
or we don't give kids the credit,
yeah,
like I think Pixar really, for Coco, like the way they dealt with death and being remembered, like that's really heavy concept for like kids, but at the same time, a lot of the kids can get it. They can understand what death is, and I think there was like a psychologist that said, like, the concept of what death is, I think, for individuals, like it starts to come up around like 3 to 5, and like they can understand, they can grasp it, and that's why I feel like, hey, if there's a conversation about racism and the way the education system can be a solution, is that why can't we just own up that, hey, we kind of did some fucked up stuff, but let's try to fix it. Like, let's be the group of people that says, hey, let's learn from it and like move to make a better US, But that's me going back to a more heavier conversation.
Yeah. I want to believe that having these films and these, I guess, shows that are being shown to these younger kids, I think, or at least I want to hope and believe that it'll help them when they're growing up and like in their younger adolescent stages, because like if we're opening up the discussion for these deeper topics to younger children at, I guess, like a younger age per se than compared to like when I learned about things here and there, I think when kids unexpectedly have to deal with those circumstances at different ages, I think it'll help them better understand and cope with it. Granted, it's still probably going to be something that's very difficult for them to deal with, but I think having the ability to be like, oh, I've seen something similar to this before, I know that I'm not the only one feeling this way, I think will help kids in the long run in terms of like coping with their inner emotions and being willing to, I guess, express their feelings. So
Yeah,
I want to hope and believe that there's a plus side to doing or showing films like that. So I think like it's good that you showed him that. It's a really good show. I mean, movie, but
yeah. And so in that case, like, I want to try to do more anime films. Try to get you in some deep cuts of maybe some Satoshi Kon, some Paprika and some Perfect Blue or Tokyo Godfathers.
You should, if you ever have the time to, you should ask them for like not necessarily like in a group. You should ask them to tell you their opinions like separately, not like in a formal like essay or anything like that, but like I think it'll be very interesting to see how different kids interpret what they're watching, even though it's the same content.
Yeah.
So
I would want to see that. In like a, if not private, that might be a little sketchy, I guess, if it's private, but like in terms of like having a very group discussion.
maybe not private,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like I think like having maybe like
A
a small
seminar.
summary or like a discussion, like I think that'll be very interesting to see how different kids interpret the same content.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
also try to pitch this idea because that they want to continue, I wouldn't say education, but kind of like services, like through Zoom, just to kind of like build community. I was pitching this idea as like, hey, why don't we do a, like, let's talk about Asian, Latin, Hispanic, Chicano, like filmmakers, you know what I mean? Like watch Roma, watch The Farewell, watch
Mm-hmm.
um um
Midsommar, and I'm just kidding.
Midsummer. No, Miss Purple. It's a Korean American film where it really tackles family, like what are family dynamics within a Korean household,
Mm-hmm.
what does it mean for respect, and like um how much families are willing to do to preserve a family union,
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking like, oh, that would be interesting because the demographic of that high school is like predominantly kind of like almost a equal mix, uh um Chicana and like Asian people. So like it would be a very interesting thing to just kind of talk about. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how far it would go, but I think, especially with the situation currently, to do a kind of like class seminar that's based off of films and giving, these kids an outlet to be able to watch a film and relax and, be able to discuss it, I think would be a very interesting concept to have. So
it'll be awesome because there's so many movies that I just love, and
yeah.
me being the film guy, I'm just like, ooh, this will be interesting. It's like, oh, we're gonna watch Do the Right Thing in the middle of summer. It's like, this is a very controversial film that came out. Like lost the Oscar to Driving Miss Daisy. And like have a discussion of like, why did this movie that talked about racism in a way that it's a current issue did not get an Oscar, did not get rewarded, versus a movie that reaffirmed the idea that, oh, racism is in the past. It's like, oh, there's a redemption arc for the white person in this movie. You know what I mean? So I was just like, okay, like what is that discussion? There. And I feel like these high school students, they're more smarter than what you give them credit to. Like they're very perceptive on things that are happening out in the world. And they're still kind of like, of course it's like they're still learning and like developing their brains in that sense. So like what they believe now may not be the same things they do later. So like, I just kind of like encourages us, like if somebody loves sci-fi so much, that's like, yeah, go watch all the sci-fi you want.
Yeah.
Like why what's it to me to stop you from doing that? Because if you love the Matrix, hey, like listen, like I'm gonna give you a list of sci-fi stuff you're gonna do your research. If you love the
Right.
Matrix, if you're gonna talk to me every day about Morpheus and like red and blue pills, you're gonna have to watch all of these other sci-fi movies because like it's not just one thing or the other. You can't just choose one property and just stay within that. Feel like you gotta explore.
Right.
So hopefully
in time.
in time, I would want to at least for you and me to try to get the podcasting running again.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and I think if anything, well, we both saw um A Silent Voice together, right? We've seen that together, and then the Violet Evergarden movie is on Netflix now,
Yeah.
so we could probably do that too. And so, we got options. I just hope
figure it out. We have time. Otherwise, I'm playing Animal Crossing.
Yeah, hopefully next week we could slot out some time and do that.
Yeah.
And then come back and talk about it, because when it comes to this anime podcast, a lot of people really go back into our Weathering with You video for whatever reason. That and the whole we had a sidecar that distracted us. Remember that?
Oh yeah. Well, we can figure it out. We definitely can try out different shows.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna try to continue doing this podcast in this format for a little while. We'll see what happens later in the future.
Yo, for the anime podcast, we have to have different virtual backgrounds for the anime.
I think that would be awesome, but I have no. Okay, you know what? How about this? How about this? Our next anime, I'm gonna produce right now. Sorry, we're gonna do a silent voice, right? You're gonna have a background, and I'm gonna figure out how to use a background.
It's not that hard.
Is it not that hard? Okay, I'll look it up. I'll say okay. So I'm gonna figure it out. Maybe I'll just do the school background. Maybe, I don't know.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Anyway, so and then I think I pitched this to you. I don't know if you're willing to do it, but because you've been my co-host for a while, I was thinking like, what would a Kalani led podcast or show would be? I think that would be awesome. I think part of me being the type of person of like, hey, I want to encourage you to do something. What would be a Kalani show?
Currently, I feel like a Kalani show on a month-to-month basis would always be different, because my interest every month has always been shifting. Like currently I'm just stuck in Animal Crossing mode, so I'm just like, I need to terraform. I need to think about what island I'm going to build. How the heck am I going to terraform it so that I have enough stairs and bridges in order to make it so my island looks okay, because you have a max of 8 stairs and bridges.
Yeah.
Well, it changes. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I just had the idea because I was just like, you've just been the most recurring
I just come here to I have nothing to do.
recurring co-host. I was just like, what would a Kalani led podcast would be? That would be interesting.
I'll think about something. I'll figure it out.
Anyways, so I hope you enjoyed this podcast. It's
been a long discussion.
This is a long discussion. This is probably the longest podcast we've done. I have another guest on the pipeline that I said, hey, it's just going to be about an hour. He's going to see this. It's like, what?
Okay, to be fair, though, we jumped the gun on conversations. And this is probably the most off-the-cuff conversation we've had in, a while. So,
That's true. And then there's so much stuff that's happened. Even in this week, there's so much stuff that happened.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like part of it is I think both of us really needed to get it off our chest almost.
Yeah.
So I think it's just kind of it was our own personal therapy session,
basically.
Yeah. So hopefully he still says yes for next week to record.
Just don't tell him about this one. Post it after he interviews.
Post it after he says yes. No, my post schedule is supposed to be tomorrow.
Okay, I guess it's going tomorrow then.
We're going. I'll try it. Yeah,
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
But yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed it, even from the light conversation to the most heavy conversation. Mm-hmm. I think what I would say is just I hope you like and subscribe, but also at the same token, it's just be good to each other.
Stay safe out there.
Stay safe. I think just life is just too precious.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really scary out there, and I think that's probably my I don't know, my 2 cents of it,
Mm-hmm.
So just be safe out there, y'all, and I hope you have a good day.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Play Animal Crossing. No, just kidding.
COVID topic, but there was something that I wanted to bring up that I think you are very vocal about it. But
that's my Instagram, and you can find my other stuff there. So that just makes it easier.
So there's links to his coffee